Al Jazeera, today's most watched news outlet in the Middle East and North Africa, with 5 TV channels, 20 different websites, 2 centers, and more than 70 bureaus worldwide, broadcasting to over 430 million homes in 150 countries and 7 different languages, covering an incredibly broad range of topics, from the Hamas-Israel war to the housing crisis in Argentina. Al Jazeera has made quite a name for itself, winning a multitude of awards, such as an Emmy for Outstanding Lifestyle Program, 2 awards at the Cannes International Film Festival, over 100 Telly Awards, and many more, all just in 2023. But how did Al Jazeera become so popular and impactful in such a short period of time? Although news outlets existed in the Middle East before Al Jazeera, its launch in 1996 was a pivotal turning point for media and journalism in the region, as it was the first independently sourced news outlet with no government interference, placing the Middle East on the global media map through the raw coverage of war and conflicts in the region during times of chaos, and gave a voice to voiceless, underrepresented minorities around the globe. In the 70s, the Middle East saw the rise of the modern-day television, and every government leaped at the chance to have their own TV channel. These government-controlled channels were incredibly censored and one-sided, always praising the federal government and not allowing any differing opinions from what the country's leaders believed in. One of these government programs was called The Voice of the Arabs, which was actually not the voice of the Arabs, and heavily and biasedly pushed Nasser's pan-Arabist message, and it would often relay false information to the public just to get their support. Media was used to manipulate and dictate the viewers by romanticizing their governments and painting a false picture. Viewers began to see the media as distrustful and believed it was just a mouthpiece for their dictatorial leaders. Qatar's Emir, Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani, who just recently gained power, wanted to transform his nation in the Middle East. Hamad saw this as a golden opportunity to democratize his small country and give it recognition as well as the whole region. Hamad funded a new independent channel, Al Jazeera, and took an oath to not interfere with the channel and to grant them complete editorial independence, which was a first in the region.
تأكد إنه ما بيكون عليها أي ضوابط سياسية أو إنها تكون مفتوحة للجميع، هذا أكيد يعني.
هذا عهدنا طال عمرك.
هذه تأكدوا منها يعني.
3 2 1
قناة الجزيرة في قطر.
On the 1st of November 1996, Al Jazeera went on air for the very first time with their well-known slogan, Al-Ra'i wal-Ra'i al-Akhar, translating to the opinion and the other opinion, gaining mass support from the people. The channel kept true to their slogan, launching many talk shows and programs that would show each story from several different angles, one of these being Al-Ittija al-Mu'akis, translating to the opposite direction. The opposite direction was a political talk show hosted by Dr. Faisal Al-Qasim, where Dr. Qasim would bring out 2 people of different political viewpoints, often a dissident and a government official. He would have them each tell their story and show their point of view in a heated debate about a certain political issue. The show became incredibly controversial due to their uncensoredness and hot takes on different governments, resulting in lots of criticism from both the Arab world and the West. The show still remains a hit today with as much support as it had 28 years ago. When Arabs were so used to the media praising and romanticizing their leaders, shows like this, which would criticize the governments and show both sides of the story, were greatly needed. After years of media manipulation and brainwashing, Al Jazeera was a massive turning point. The media was once seen as oppressive and narrow, but this channel was eye-opening and refreshing, playing a very large part in overthrowing corrupt governments in the eventual Arab Spring. Al Jazeera became rapidly famous in the region for their unwavering beliefs, but at this point, they were only influential and well-known in the Middle East. As Al Jazeera was looking to expand and become more well-known, the Middle East began to go through another set of political struggles. In 1998, the Taliban took control of Afghanistan. Western reporters steered clear of the region out of fear, but according to Taysir Aloni, former Kabul bureau chief, Afghanistan was a keg waiting to explode, and they wanted to be the first ones there when it finally burst.
هذا البلد عبارة عن برميل بارود سينفجر يوما ما. نحن الجزيرة نريد أن نكون هناك.
This prompted Al Jazeera to make a new bureau in Afghanistan, which would become crucial to making themselves known. Just 2 years later, on September 11, 2001, the World Trade Center was attacked in New York City, eliciting a worldwide response. Once it was revealed who the attackers were, everyone's eyes were on Afghanistan, and the name Osama bin Laden was echoed in every household, yet nobody could pinpoint him, except for Al Jazeera. Bin Laden would leave his infamous tapes on the doorstep of Al Jazeera's Kabul office. His tapes were heavily censored by the American government and they did not want them publicly released, although many of the tapes were meant for the public. Much to their dismay, this is exactly what Al Jazeera did, broadcasting the tapes as well as releasing a transcript, translating the tapes to English for the public to see. The news channel broadcasted interviews with Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, eventually even getting to interview bin Laden himself. Al Jazeera became a sensation overnight, with the news channels asking them for their footage from Afghanistan and the tapes. These events sealed the role of the Middle East on the global media map, making the West take them seriously and see them as a strong player on the global media stage. As one reporter had said,
عادت بس عم بتبث أخبار صارت هي نفسها الخبر.
Just 4 weeks later, U.S. fighter jets bombed Al Jazeera's bureau in Kabul, as well as unfairly imprisoning many of their employees for several years in Guantanamo Bay with no trial. One victim, Sami Al-Hajj, reveals how he was arrested on a routine trip to Afghanistan.
جاء رجل قال لي غير ملابسك والآن سنسلمك لأمريكا لتقتلك.
This did not discourage Al Jazeera as they continued to show new tapes to the world, again showing both sides of the story.
Taliban propaganda over and over and over again.
At the same time, the Second Intifada broke out in Palestine, giving Al Jazeera another opportunity to globalize itself. Al Jazeera showed raw coverage of riots and protests that went viral, drawing attention to the conflict. When accused by Israel of fanning media outrage, Al Jazeera replied with a statement saying that the role of Al Jazeera is like any other news channel, to report, not to support. But contrary to popular belief, Al Jazeera was covering both sides of the conflict equally and was criticized by both as well, with its reporting center in Ramallah, West Bank being shut down for 5 days by the Palestinian Authority due to reports of alleged corruption issued by Yasser Arafat himself. After being invisible to the world for years, Al Jazeera's raw coverage of all of these events was a turning point for the region as it placed them on the global media map, letting them be seen by the whole world. Now that they were well known, Al Jazeera decided it was time to give attention to the world's many underrepresented minorities in need. Al Jazeera had an office in Sudan's capital, covering the Sudanese civil war. But in 2003, while everyone's eyes were focused on the start of America's war on Iraq, all turned a blind eye to the inhumane genocide taking place in Darfur, Sudan, killing a staggering 200,000 civilians in just a matter of 2 years. Al Jazeera took it upon themselves to spread the message and show the world the genocide, even having reporters arrested on accusations of slandering the government. A senior producer who was covering the scene claims that sadly, no one talked about that issue back then.
أي إنسان في ذلك الوقت غير الجزيرة.
Al Jazeera even turned the camera to disasters in Asia. In 2004, thousands of people in South and Southeast Asia became victims of the world's deadliest tsunami, killing over 230,000 people in a matter of hours. The tsunami was record-breaking and devastating, leaving nothing behind in its raging path. Al Jazeera's Indonesian bureau chief
أول
claims
قناة
that
أجنبية تصل أو غير إندونيسية تصل إلى مكان الحدث في الأيام الأولى وشهدنا المشهد المأساوي.
Another example of Al Jazeera's representation of minorities is Kashmir's deadly earthquake. In 2005, a tremendous 7.6 magnitude earthquake absolutely ripped through Kashmir, Al Jazeera being the first on the scene, and just the first few days reported the death toll as high as 10,000, while the Pakistani government reported just 93 people dead. Al Jazeera later got anonymous threats to take their numbers down, yet the number kept rising and rising until it hit over a staggering 80,000 people dead. For these small, underrepresented populations, Al Jazeera's presence during these devastating events was a turning point for them as it gave these minorities a voice to be heard around the world, calling for help and for better representation. Today, Al Jazeera has come a long way from the small news station operating from Doha they used to be, to now being the Middle East and North Africa's most watched TV channel with 70 worldwide bureaus. They're still airing to this day, giving uncensored news, always showing both sides of the story, and helping advance the Middle East economically and socially through their platforms, and handing the mic over to underrepresented people who truly deserve it. The launch of Al Jazeera was such an incredible turning point for the Middle East, as it gave them the editorial freedom and open, uncensored media they needed, and made the Middle East significant and known on the global media map due to their raw coverage of conflict in the region, and it helped elevate all the voiceless minorities around the world, giving them a chance to tell their stories.